Today we're gonna talk about Netherlands' most racist icon. Or is he? And another Friday, another episode. We got a great show for you tonight. So it's in the Netherlands, it's the end of November and we're nearing the beginning of December. So that means only one thing. That means it's time for the festivities. So the Netherlands has a particular kind of tradition called Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas, and it comes all together with all different kinds of candy and presents for people, your loved ones, and all of it. It's a national holiday, so I always like it very much, especially these things. They're great. However, there's it's a nationwide holiday, but it hasn't always been, especially later years, it hasn't been accepted as a festivity that is for everybody, especially since the recent or near recent migration input into the Netherlands, and yeah, some people have some trouble adapting to the local festivities. So perhaps best to exemplify that is to just show you a little clip of what got the news lately. So.
And now, as we approach the Christmas season, the Netherlands is once again embroiled in their own blackface debate around Santa's Dutch magical helper, Black Pete.
Anti-racism campaigners held protests throughout Holland on Saturday as the Dutch celebrated the arrival of St. Nicholas and his traditional yet controversial companion, Black Pete. Black Pete is usually portrayed by white people in black face paint, wearing frizzy wigs and red lipstick. It is criticised for being racist. We think that Sinterklaas is a party for the people and that it should stay the way it is. That is why we are here. We want Zwarte Piet to stay black. This should not be a political affair, but just a nice party for all the people.
Okay. In case you're confused, here's what's going on. In the Netherlands, they have Santa, right, just like everyone else. But they also have a character named Black Pete, a magical helper who rolls with Santa Claus. And how it works is if kids are nice, Santa gives them presents, but if kids are naughty, Black Pete whips their ass.
Well, that's not entirely true. So I need to just get some hairs out of this because it's gonna get more complicated in a minute. So first of all, Trevor, it's good that you don't confuse your American Santa Claus with our Dutch Sinterklaas, because it's not that our version of Santa Claus is something that is that we made up with a black kind of helper. No, it's the other way around. Your Santa Claus is a derivative of our Dutch Sinterklaas. So that's good to get that into your system because you're gonna need it. Second of all, yes, it's about festivities. It's about giving presents, giving presents to your loved one, giving presents to children, giving candy to children. There's Black Pete just climbs up into your house, and he just gives you presents while you're asleep. And it's part of the festival and the celebration. And the fact that it's that people think it's racist, it has to do with some kind of blackface. And blackface is also, it's an American tradition. Because blackface is something that happened when the Ku Klux Klan participated in a film, and wow, what's that film called? The film is called Birth of a Nation, that's the one. So yeah, when people would record this film and they wouldn't have enough African Americans which were portrayed in the film, they would get white actors and they would paint their face black, and that's how they would portray black people in films. And so that idea of that being racist, because, you know, of course you could hire a black actor in those days, but and they were, but mostly, you know, people were in that film, they were slaves back then. So when you paint your face black to appear of a Negro appearance, or in this case African American appearance, that is seen as racist. And so that idea, that American idea that originated in the United States, that is now being pasted onto a Dutch tradition. And I hope to show in this episode how wrong that is. And for that first exemplary, we're gonna have another look at Noah. Let's see. Noah, what do you got?
Here's what I think is weird about Black Pete in this debate. Some people in the Netherlands say that Black Pete isn't blackface. He's just black because he slides down the chimney and he gets the shit all over him. Okay, I'm willing to accept that explanation, but then ask me this. Why does he come down with an afro and red lips? What's happening in that chimney? Huh?
Well, now, I'm glad you asked. That's an excellent question. But we're gonna have to take some time to get into that. And for that, I'm gonna go get right into my newly created time machine. So let's have a look. Here we go. We got my nice time machine. It's something that I put together. Very, very happy with it. It's some new kind of software that I'm figuring out. So if you guys like it, let me know. But on to our main subject of today. It is Black Pete, and let's get into it. So, first of all, who is Black Pete? Well, Black Pete is the helper of Saint Nicholas. However, he's not just a helper. It's not like he's an elf to Santa Claus, like he's like a second-rate person. No, he's a main character. It's the two of them. They're a duo, so they're in a narrative balance. So when you have the old man with the wisdom and the kindness and the softness, you have the agile and the jumpy and the joker kind of Black Pete. So it's definitely not like a second-rate character. It's a main character, and he's not alone. There's a boatload of amount of Black Pete. It's like the Smurfs. Like you can copy them, and there's like a million of them, and he needs them because all the presents need to be given to the children, right? So, however, the last few years he's been under scrutiny, because people say, well, it's a racist stereotype, and therefore Black Pete has become a black sheep. And well, in this episode we're gonna figure out if he really is a racist stereotype. So we're gonna go into it, and you can judge for yourself. Another question that we're gonna ask is Saint Nicholas, who is obviously he's a character that is connected to a bishop, and is he his master? That's a good question to ask, I think. How is that? How is the origins of their relation? So for that we're gonna have to go back in time. So we're in the 1900s here, so right away you can see like that Saint Nicholas, he's not necessarily the friendly man who we all know him to be. And also on the other side, Black Pete, he doesn't appear to have red lips, although it's a black and white picture, so who's gonna say. But also that hair, the curly hair of this guy, at least, well, that appears to be very much his own hair. So 1900s. What else do we have? So we have some children books. So here's some portrayals of I think there's the 1920s when well, the festivities were first being promoted to children, and like things you could sell, books to read, and all of it. They call it a prentenboek, and a book full of images. So this is something that you could give to your child as a gift, for instance. They can look at the pretty pictures because, you know, there wasn't Netflix back then. So yeah, let's look at these images. So right away, if we go into this and we see the images of Blackbeard, we can, you know, we can definitely see that these images of Blackbeard, there's a connotation with the African American appearance, or not only African American, let's say African appearance. You know, the black phenotype that we know from Africa. And yeah, we can see big lips, we can see the curly hair. So there's no doubt about it. In this 1920s appearance, there's definitely a linkage with African people. So it doesn't look very good for the hypothesis, right? Maybe Blackbeard is racist. Maybe it is a diminutive way of looking at our fellow human man. But you know, this is a book. This is a portrayal. So if we look at another picture, so let's say for instance this one, and you can see at these people who are painting their face, you know, they don't dress up as someone who looks like the black phenotype. You know, they don't have the curly hair, they don't have the red lips. Is definitely something else going on. And what's up with the twigs? They call it the roe in Dutch. So what's up with that? So obviously we're not gonna go anywhere if we're gonna stay in the 19th century. So for that, and luckily we have the time machine, so we need to go back, all the way back. We need to go back to, well, the previous civilization. And for that, I'm so happy that I got this time machine. So we end up in Atlantis. Now, this might be a jump for a lot of people, but let's gather a little bit about what we know about Atlantis. So Atlantis, you know, the city with the concentric circles. We talked about this before in different shows, but it's particularly relevant for today. So what do we know about Atlantis? Well, Atlantis was built by those who had godlike capabilities, and it was an advanced civilization. So that's what we know by Plato. However, there's some people who have had some channelings, is what you call them. There's two very famous ones who I'd like to read here. So one of them is Edgar Cayce, and he writes about Atlantis. He writes this: they were able to make use of animals for carrying out experiments in reproduction and crossbreeding, resulting in mixtures of animals and humans that served as workers or slaves for Atlanteans. It's Edgar Cayce, reading 877 till 26. And also Helena Blavatsky has written something very interesting about Atlantis. She wrote, thus arose the Atlantean giants, and thus also the first hybrid races were produced by a union of animal men and human, and in this way were the higher animals produced, which you can read in The Secret Doctrine, Volume 2. So this appears that there's in Atlantis there's some ancient breeding going on, some DNA mixtures between animals and humans, which is I think is very interesting. Now, why is that interesting? Well, because when you read Plato, because why did Atlantis go down? When you read Plato, Plato says the following: but when the divine element in them became weakened, their human traits became predominant. They ceased to be able to carry their prosperity with moderation. So obviously in what they were doing, what their technological civilization were, they were kind of mixing it up in like a wrong way, and something got corrupted within their civilization, and that eventually became the beginning of their downfall. And obviously Atlantis is associated with a lot of flooding. It sank down into the ocean, and that of course corresponds with the story of Noah's flood. And I'm going to read from the Bible here. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways, which is Genesis 6:11 till 12. Now, there's a couple of things that we can get from these, and I found based this on archaeological data. There's the priest, which are, you know, these guys, the elongated heads. You might remember them. There's talk of giants. There's those, and there's also talk of genetic experimentation by both of the psychics. So yeah, we have these findings, which you know, they're from all over the world. So I'm not gonna say that they're specifically located in some place, but it's just good to be aware that this has been found. And for that, we're gonna continue. We're gonna take a big step, and we're gonna go to Sardinia. And Sardinia is an interesting place, very, very interesting place. They have found these giants. And these giants, they're kind of, there's these big statues, and they're giant statues. They're taller than that I am, and I'm Dutch and I'm tall. So yeah, these giants, they're interesting because they kind of resemble Urfa man, which is found in Turkey, which is this guy. And the interesting thing about this comparison is that even though they have like a similar shape in appearance, kind of, it appears that the Sardinian stonework is more sophisticated, is more, you know, the Urfa man is cruder, and that is 9,000 years ago. So some people might say, well, that's because they developed the stonemasonry, but if we know around the world, and we know that there's a lot of interesting stoneworks that might be way older than it is. It might also be the other way around. It might be that the stonemasonry is in a decline ever since we got from Atlantis. So that would mean that the stone giants from Sardinia, they're even older than the ones than Urfa man. So keep that in mind. You know, it might be very old. So I want to have a look at this particular one. So this one, you can see it stands next to a miniature statue of a Nurage. It has a shield, but also look at the top. Look at the top of his head. You see this, and what's at the top of his head. And we can come to this as a reconstruction, but what he has here, these are the protrusions of two horns. And we know that they're horns because when you see the bronze little statue of the Nurage there, he has horns. Now this statue is up to 2.5 meters, which is 8 feet for all you Americans out there. And yeah, the horns. So this is a reconstruction, and these reconstructions, they are based on the bronzettis. And the bronzettis are those bronze little statues that come from the Nuragi. And just to have a look at them, here they are. So yeah, you can see, you know, if we compare them a little bit, you know, they have the shield, They have the bow. You know, there's a kind of warrior. So they're definitely related. Now, interesting thing with the nurage, and you don't really see it with the stone giants, but you see it with the bronzettis. You see that there's elongated headwear. So there's this guy, and he wears like a longer cap. You know, it's almost like a gnome hat. You know, and also the horns. The horns are over exaggerated with the bronzettis. So the Bronzetti culture, the nurage culture, is dated from around 1800 to 500 BC. And so they say that these stone giants, they're from the same area. Although, they are from the same area, but they're from the same era. And I don't believe that. And I'm going to tell you why I don't believe that. So what we have here is we have Sardinia. And this square that I just popped on the screen, can you see it? Little square. That square is where the stone giants were found. Only on that particular spot on the west side of the island. It's oriented north, so it's on the west side of the island. And this is where the bronzettis were found. So that's all over the entire island. So I don't believe that it's the same culture. I think it's the stone giants are an earlier culture, and I think the bronzettis are a later culture. Now you might think, what does all of this have to do with black peat? Was very important. So remember, keep black peat in mind, and we're gonna continue, and we're gonna go a little bit further into the past. So I'm gonna take you back all the way to France, 1500 BC. There's this image, and it's based upon this, not the original image. The original image, it's in a cave in France, and the cave, what they do in France is you cannot enter. And the reason is because when you enter, something has to do with the atmosphere, and you know they might diminish. So I've never been there, but I know the same is true for Lascaux cave. The caves in Lascaux, they made a replica in a different cave. They repainted everything, and that's the one that you can visit. You cannot visit the original. And so this one, it's found in the Tres Frères cave in Arlige, France, and it's a depiction of they call it the sorcerer, but it's almost like shamanic. And notice his eyes. So he has the concentric circles in the eyes, just like the stone giants. You know, they also have the concentric circle eyes. And another thing is that, well, you can see his part hanging out, you know, between his legs, and that's very reminiscent of Urfa Man. So, you know, very interesting portrayal. Also, he is definitely human. He is a human that has an antler depiction. So that's why they call him the shaman. And of course, it wouldn't be an episode about shamanic culture if we wouldn't have our sponsor, Druid Secret. Druid Secret, for all your CBD needs and everything else that you want to have that's natural, that you want to have in your medicine cabinet. If you don't have any CBD left in your medicine cabinet, go over there, use the code Paradigm Shift. You're gonna have the best quality out there. If you need it for anything such as menstrual cramps, or anything that you have, like maybe you're like old and you have like arthritis in your fingers, or whatever, any chronic pains that you have to deal with, CBD oil is the thing that you want to have, just to make life easier, to make life livable. And also you're helping out the show by buying something. You get a 5% discount, and then we get a percentage of the sale. So the more that we sell, the more that I can make these fantastic episodes for you. So if you want to see more of this kind of content, make sure you go over there and you use the code Paradigm Shift. Also, at the same time, you're going to find a wealth of all natural medicine in there that you might have never even heard of. So go check out that website, go see if there's something out there that you want to buy, and use the code Paradigm Shift. And with that, let's continue to our regular episode. So let's go into Iraq in ancient Sumeria, and let's continue with the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a very interesting story. It's one of the earliest stories that we have in our current paradigm. And it tells the story about Gilgamesh, and in the beginning of the story he meets his friend. First they are rivals, but then they become good friends. And his friend is called Enkidu. And Enkidu also is portrayed as a being with horns. And he's kind of like, he represents the tension between nature and civilization. So he's definitely, he's connected with animals, and he's connected with nature. The origins 2100 BC, so very old, and very, very interesting. Also, you can see in these depictions, they are definitely giants. You know, Gilgamesh with that's a lion that he's holding, so tall guy. Let's see what else we have. Right, this is India. It's the Indus Valley civilization. Now, this is the Indus Valley civilization is the oldest civilization that we know today. So and there's this god, and his name is Pashupati. And notice that he's sitting in a yoga seat, and the posture is called the Prasmasana, of the Pasmasana. So if any of you yogic people out there, please correct me. And he's the protector of living beings. So you see him with a rhino, you see him with an elephant, you see him with a buffalo, you see him with a tiger, and there's some deer underneath. Very, very interesting depiction. So also the connection, strong connection with nature. So if you don't know, the Indus Valley is a way, way long away from Italy. They say it's Indus Valley, but it's more is the Indus Delta civilization. It's a better way of thinking about it, because all the rivers come together in that area. A very fertile area. That's why they call it the Fertile Crescent. All right, back to Sardinia. So here we have a head of the stone giants of Monte Prama. Now, I wanted to focus a little bit on this image, so you see the concentric circle eyes. You know, it's almost like they put the eyes in later. It's almost like the statues were there first, and they put the circles in, and it's like a strange kind of. It's almost like they're not really eyes. You know, it's like something else. Now, way after the Nuragi civilization, so after the Bronzetti sculptures. After that, we go to the Daunian culture, which is 1000 to 300 BC, and you also see a depiction. You see the same eyes, the same concentric eyes, but now they're integrated in the whole face. So the concentric circles are smaller. But another thing is interesting here, and that's not only do they recreate the type of sculptures, they also added something, which is this. Yeah, that's a guy with a conical hat. If you look carefully, if you look at his eyes, now it's not very visible because part of his face has been smashed away over years. But you can see on the other side, he has the similar kind of eye. So very interesting. And there's been research about the Daunian culture. So we know where they come from. They come from here, which is, I think, what is that? That's Croatia, I think. modern day Croatia. I should have put that there. But yeah, that's where their DNA lineage has been tracked to. So there's no doubt about it. This is where that culture comes from. So they came from there, but they took the culture from here. So what's going on there? It's an adaptation. It's like, okay, we enter into an area, but we adapt and we take the local culture and we make it into something else, and we make it of something of our own. So next up, if we look on the depiction of people with elongated headwear, and we look at the depiction of people with horns on their head, or maybe it's even a horn wearing, but you can see in Ain Dara, which is in Aleppo, Syria, which is the modern city of Aleppo in Syria. 700 BC, you see depictions like these. You see, in the middle, you see the guy with the conical hat, and you see the two horned, half animals. They're definitely half animal. Look at their paws. Their hoofs. They're not feet. And they're in the same picture, and it's like the person in the middle, that's the most important one, right? That's the one that's being put on the foreground, and the people on the side, that's their, well, maybe it's their helpers, who knows? So very interesting. And this is found in Hadad, which is Bethsaida, Israel. It dates back to 800 BC. Now, I put a map next to it because it might be a little bit difficult to understand. So for people who don't live in this part of the world, so the square, that's where Ain Dara is in Syria. In the star, that's where Israel is. And the little triangle you can see right there, that's in Denmark. Now, why did I put Denmark on the map? Well, this is the reason. Because in Denmark, we found the Gundestrup cauldron, which is dated to 200 to 300 BC. And it's found in Gundestrup, Denmark. And you can see the depiction of what is known as the Celtic god Cernunnos. Now, Cernunnos is a combination. It's not a Cernu, or Kernu is a Celtic word for horns, and Unnos or Nunos it's a Greek word for god. So it's called the horned god. And you can see a depiction with the similarity with the Indian god, which is way older, and he's in the seated yoga position. So it's very interesting that we find this in Northern Europe. Also, for the Uralinda people out there, this cauldron, it also depicts a six-pointed wheel. The six-pointed wheel also found in India. But back to Cernunnos, he has the deer antlers, he's in a sitting position, he's surrounded by animals, very good connection with nature, and he's the bringer of surplus. And it has to do a lot with fertility, and he has like a connection with the world beyond, so the spiritual world. So that's the Celtic world for you right there. So we go all over all of these cultures. And so we go back in time just a little bit more. So we go back to the stele of Narasim, which is found in Susa, Iran. It's more than 4,000 years old. And what you can see here is you can see kind of like a hybrid form. So you can see like a little bit of an elongated headwear, but you also can see the horns, and that connects a little bit to the ones at Sardinia, because if you look at the one in Sardinia, the giant, the stone giant, you can also see like it's a little bit higher than all the other ones. So interesting similarity there. So then we go to the Chaldean, the Neo-Babylonian in Iraq, which is 600 to 500 BC. And you might think, well, what is interesting about this? Well, first of all, you can see the three ones, right? So the two people with the horns on the side, but then you have the one in the middle, and the one in the middle in this case, it's supposed to be a serpent god. So we're not gonna go into this further, but there's definitely some very strong other connections there. But yeah, it's supposed to be a serpent god, and what you see next to it, which is one of the most important things here, I believe, is you can kind of see like a fish depiction. So if you see on the image on the left, you can see a depiction of yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's like a fish upside down, and you can also see it on the other one, although it resembles less of a fish. But yeah, this is the area where we get into the area of the fish gods. They called it the arrow of Ra. That's what they of Re. That's what it's called. But it appears to be it appears to be a summary of different kind of symbols all gathered into one, and it comes out as a fish. So very interesting. And then we get here. So we have a Sumerian god, which is called Anu, which is 3000 BC. It's the first depiction of the first time we hear of him. And for a long time in Sumeria, that's where they worship the fish god. So the Dagon priest, there's in the Dagons also in Sumeria. They also worship this kind of fish god, and so it might very well be that a priest might look like this. So you can see an artist impression here of what he might look like, a priest back then. So yeah, that's kind of what's happening in the Levant at this period of time. You see fish headwear. Now, how do we get this to Italy? What you see on the left side is you see a first glass stained window of what is called a mitre, and it's found 10,000 BC in Italy. 10,000. It's 1000 AD in Italy, and it's worn by a Pope Leo IX. You can see his elongated feature, which is typical that we find this in Italy, because in Spain we find a mitre. We find the mitre as we know it, and this mitre is very interesting because this is not a regular mitre. It's what it's called. It's a two-horned mitre, and you can still see the little round circles on the top. That's why it's called a two-horned mitre. Now, why is that interesting? Well, because this is the hat of Sinterklaas. You see what I'm getting there, right? We're exploring the deep origins of this current festival. So, who is Sinterklaas? Well, we know who Sinterklaas is because we see him as Saint Nicholas. And Saint Nicholas apparently was the latest reincarnation of something that has been going on through the ages. So, who was Saint Nicholas? Well, his name was Nicholas of Myra. Myra is a place in Turkey. However, this place back then was part of the Greek Byzantine Empire. So even though this takes place, his life takes place in Turkey, he's not a Turkish guy, he's a Greek guy. Yeah, and that's also why his name in Greek, it means like he who leads the people. Now, he is associated with generosity, and his cultus, the cultus of Saint Nicholas, it stretches all over Europe, and even if you include Santa Claus in it, which is also Saint Nick, Saint Nicholas, it stretches all over the entire world. So very interesting. And that this guy became the most recent reincarnation of what we now call Sinterklaas. Now notice that Saint Nicholas, even if you see the old depiction, this is an old depiction from Egypt, from the one of the earliest ones that I could find. Now he has the crosses, right? So this is where the cross on the mitre comes from. But also, you should look at it. He has an extended forehead, right? So who knows what his genetics would be? We don't know. All right, so midway observations, because we're not already there. We still have a long way to go. However, this episode is a two-part episode, so we're gonna go into what observations we did from here. So first of all, we can see there's ancient depictions of people wearing horns. Now they may or may not derive from ancient genetic creations between animal and humans. Could be, we don't know. I'm just putting it out there. And then we have ancient depictions of people wearing elongated headwear. Now we also find people with elongated skulls. There's no doubt about it. They're out there. And they're found in the Black Sea region. So that's not too far from where they come from. Now we're going to dive into that in another episode later on. So we're going to find out a little bit more about this culture later on. But what we can see here is between it appears that there's like interactions between two different cultures that have different godheads on the top of their culture. So, and what we kind of get out of it, if we follow along, is that we see that the elongated headwear people, they appear to dominate, and they do that in a way by entering into a shamanic culture and adapting, like putting their own symbols in it, trying to put their own depictions, trying to merge it, and trying to introduce themselves into that culture. And so the people with the elongated headwear, they're an imperialistic culture. It's an expanding imperialistic culture trying to take over an old shamanic culture that is native. And the side effect of that is that the shamanic culture, it dissipates slowly, it dissolves, it slowly loses its footing, and what it turns into is it turns into a symbiosis. So what you can see is that there's two opposites of it. So the interesting thing is that if you have nature, and so you have the intuition, right? You have the spiritual, and then the people with the elongated skulls, they are associated with rationality. They're associated with planning. So there's two opposites. And then you have the male and the female. So you have the male, the Saint Nicholas, the old wise man. And then you have the female, the agility and the youth and the fertility and all of that. And then another opposite that we find is we have the East and the West. And we see all this yin and yang principles at work over time. So this is, I think, is evidence that what we see is that this is a pattern that is recurring over and over again. So continue that. This is what we find in Europe today. Now, these are all incarnations of the same Saint Nicholas festival, and we're only halfway here. So this is a two-part episode. So we're gonna go into it next week when it's Sinterklaas has just been over. But we're gonna We're gonna do the finale back then, but not before we're gonna have a look at these pictures. So look at this. Yeah, that's Saint Nicholas, and that's what we call a Krampus. Now, more about the Krampus next week, but yeah, definitely there's the Christian saint, and there's the old pagan demonic looking. It's a fertility symbol. So very interesting what's going on here. So with that being said, that was the episode of today. It's gotten a little bit dark here, so it's time for me to continue on my work day. So if you like this episode, I've put a lot of hard work into it. Also, if you like the new software, then let me know in the comments. Let me know if this is a subject that is interesting to you. So put something down in the comments. Don't forget to give me a like or a thumbs up. Also, if you're not subscribed, we're gonna have lots of more of this content. If you're interested in this, we're gonna have way more old narratives that we're gonna dive into, and we're gonna lift the veil. We're gonna take out all of our ancient history, and we're gonna put it into the right context. So if you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Click that subscribe button. At the same time, of course, make sure that we visit our sponsor, druidsecret.com. Enter the code Paradigm Shift. You get 5% discount on your entire shopping basket. They have fantastic products. If you don't have CBD oil in your medicine cabinet, you should have it. And with that being said, I'm gonna end the show right here. So we're gonna see you all next week. Bye-bye.